Well, we'll go ahead and kick this off. Like I say, all our regulars are on, but for anybody that may join or watching on demand, you've reached the Cute for Teams, champions using teams effectively, where we geek out on all things teams. Got me, Ricardo, and Stacy as well. This is office hours and live webcast, so as always, you can use the chat or come off mute. If you did come with a question, we're happy to do that. And I'm getting over a cold, so I'm trying to manage my coughs and everything. So you may see me go on mute from time to time for that. In fact,
Do what you need to do, Ricardo. We've all been there. I'm glad you
yeah,
have your glass of water close at hand.
right. So with that being said, while we certainly would take questions, one of the things that I wanted to talk today is that this new chat and channels UI that you may have heard of that happens to be rolling out in this year. Happens to be rolling out. If you're a GCC, I think you may have some more time to wait, but you got a personal account or anything like that and are tagged for the public preview stuff or targeted release, you either are seeing it or will see it any day now. And it is in my demo tenant. Uh, it's one of those game changers. I love it. I was going to show it today. Every now and then, you longtime folks know every now and then there's some things that I get all excited about and just think that they're world changing. I don't know.
So
This is sort of like feels like one of them.
we agree on a lot of things, but I was not nearly as excited about this one.
Really?
I was on the I mean, you could say I was kicking and screaming all the
Mm,
way to the preview. I just thought that the original apps, the Teams app made sense, the chat app made sense, and putting them together felt like a mashup that I just didn't need.
hmm. Okay.
but but I'm glad you're going to demo it today
Yeah.
because although it introduced a lot of friction in the short run for me, man, I'm glad it is the way it is now. And I think
Hmm.
that's an adoption arc that I am not used to. I am usually all about bringing on the change and trying the
Hmm.
new thing. And I get excited about those kinds of things and being the early adopter. This one, not so much. But
Yeah.
through the practice, through trying to look for how I made it work in the way that I work with teams, I discovered that I understood the impetus behind it and I got kind of excited about now how it works for me. So
Hmm.
it was good to be in those shoes again because,
Yeah.
I forget what
And,
it's like to adopt something you're not interested in adopting.
yeah. And I'm glad you maybe it sounds like you're coming over, but I'm glad you were on that
I
side of the
am.
fence. This is good because I know that there is varying opinions out in the community. Some love it, and some maybe not so much. So as we go through this, I mean, you can point out maybe some the friction areas that you see. I've heard a few that I'll bring up, and certainly anybody on the call, I'll bring it up too. Because one, I'd love to, if there is a friction area, I love to talk through that. Maybe try to, win your vote, with the way to think about it. Because while I've heard some friction points, I just think there's more wins than losses on this one. So we can talk through it. Um, so here in mine, I've already kind of hit the button. Let's start there. As this rolls out in preview, and I think even as it rolls out GA, it'll probably roll out with as an option initially. And so you'll see when it rolls out, you're getting this new chats and channels area in your settings, by which you can decide whether you want it combined or to keep it separate. Okay, so no one's forcing this initially. There's an option here, and so you'll make that choice about combined, you'll get some options about how you want that to look. Um, so that's the first step is kind of going in here. And then of course, when it rolls out, you'll see pop-ups and things to kind of let you know it's there. Um, but if you didn't want to participate at this time, you can keep it separate. So in this case, I've gone and done that. The big change being one, we lose the Teams button. And you see, I just have my chat there because as it implies, chat and channels are all in one. Now, that's the first place I'll start is, I saw feedback about there's only a chat button and there's going to be some confusion and big time training for where are my teams essentially. Um, and so I do get that. I mean, especially if I've always associated my teams and the channels of my teams with chat conversations, but maybe there are folks for whom Teams was not a place to chat, but more for my files and my other tabs. Yeah, so I could see that.
I do think that's where the friction comes from. It's from
Yeah.
those of us who saw Teams as a separate mode of communication, right? I mean, it sounds like you were kind of seeing it as this ongoing conversation, much like chat, whereas I was seeing it as almost parking lots for projects and things that I was working on that I could go and make a post and then not necessarily plug into in the next hour or the next day, but still come back and have that ad hoc. That's not the word I'm looking for. Asynchronous communication. So that's one of the reasons why. So I like how you presented it, that when you came from your perspective on Teams channels as ongoing conversations, I came to it as this works differently. And so I didn't get the mashup when it was first presented to me. Now, after working in it, I love it, but it did take a little bit of a mind switch. Instead of looking at them as two separate communication functions, rather look at them as similar, and putting them together made me more productive, which in the end is what I needed. So
because for me, what was chat was more informal conversation, and Teams was just formal conversation. Threads and channels, it was just more organized, but to me they were both areas to talk to my teams. So I get that. And so I mean, with enough of that kind of feedback, I would think one of the simple things might be a new button that, when a new word that somehow meets everybody, in the middle, right? That I don't know what that would be that helps everyone, but that, might be the challenge there. So outside of that, though, that's the first hurdle, is our users just getting their minds into this button, regardless of what it's called, I guess, is where my chats and my channels and teams are. I wonder if some magical icon and or word there might help, blow this thing wide open. But we can get past that. The one thing I will say is that once you get past that, so even if you're ignoring all this other stuff, this here, I click this and I see this. Now, to me, this is the same as when I was hitting the Teams button.
Right.
So once I'm past the loss of the button, no loss that I can see in terms of what the functionality I was getting from that button, right? This Teams and channels and this layout is the same layout as before, right? The teams themselves and the channels that are in them. And I click on them and I'm still taken to all the same things as before. So again, ignoring any new functionality related to the new teams, the chat and channels UI, the confidence, the comfort that I still get my team's experience with this new UI, right? Once I can get past that button loss. Right. So I mean, I can't think of anything that I'm losing here from that perspective. So hopefully that's true for everyone. Like I say, once you click on it, this the right side of this is all as we would come to expect. Our conversations, our files, everything are there. Um, so that's good. Nothing lost there. Now, if I collapse that though, then that kind of gets us into what we are gaining, which
Mhm.
is okay. So now there is a expand and collapse for Teams, and then there's an expand and collapse for chat. But then what we don't see here yet is this ability to do custom sections as well. There's a couple reasons why the sections I think are game changing is that in these teams, that all these different teams that I'm a part of, and this could be, just depends on how you work, but in this example, there is a sales support channel here in sales and marketing, and there is a support channel here in operations. And in production department, there is a production support channel. I'm in a bunch of teams with channels with similar purpose. In pre pre this in a world before this change, how did I manage going to those different channels? I'm all about support, and my support is across all these different teams. How did I manage that, right? I mean, you just kind of had to remember where these channels are across these different teams.
Mhm.
Folks like me, I would go into OneNote, I'd make my own dashboard of the links to these different channels. But that's the one pain point. How do I have channels that I care about across different teams? How do I see that in one place? And that's one of the things that this new thing does, because now if I come in here and make a new section called support, right? And so my section's created and it is here. That's a good spot for it. So now I want to take this sales support and I want to show it in my support section. I want to take this production support and I want to show it in my support section. And I want to take this support channel and show it in the support section. So now 3 different channels across 3 different teams are now represented in that one section. Um, so one place to go to click across them, but the other subtle thing here is bold. Things go in bold. Yes, they're in the same section, but to collapse them and know that nothing's going on across all my channels until my section goes bold is a big deal for me. It has been a game changer for me. As you can imagine, I'll have channels that, internally related to teams, channels related to Copilot, and then channels related to the different V teams I'm on. And to be able to know that if, V team, number 3 is not bold, then nothing's going on with that team, those channels, those chats even, right? Because this section doesn't just have to have channels. Um, if in my chats, let's see, um, let's say, this test number 5 is a meeting related to support. Well, let me add that to support. And let's say this chat with Amber. Amber is a support specific person. So I'm going to add her to support. So now all things support, channel talk, meetings, and individual chats related to support are in that area. And that's what I do, is sit here with it collapsed, waiting to see if it goes bold. If it goes bold, then something support related is now waiting for me, either in a channel, an individual chat, or a team. And so that bold concept is big deal for me. Basically that unread concept. And for me, that's waiting for bold. It's also using this amazing button here to click and say, show me everything unread across everything. Has been another game changer. So you can see here, support is not listed. Support wasn't bold. But you can see where my other unread areas are. I love seeing going there to just see at a glance across all my teams. I'm in dozens of teams, and there was no good way to see in the old way where the activity was the way it is with this. I'm gonna pause there to see, Stacy, if that vibes with you or anybody on the call, if that vibes with you, or if I'm not, or if
Yeah.
that's still not getting it. Yeah.
No, it absolutely vibes with me. And I think the being able to define those sections and move things around where it brings it to your attention when you need to see it. And I don't think we should, I think we can, I don't think we should underestimate just what that visual cue can do at times with the bold,
Mm-hmm.
because just of what our brain is trying to interpret with what I have to focus on now.
Mm-hmm.
And having that be part of the tracking in the new layout is really cool.
Yeah.
Um, plus,
I,
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say one thing about that. That bold, I was off site once, and so now I'm depending on my mobile as I'm going to and fro.
Mhm.
That bold, being able to pull up mobile, obviously this new UI is on the mobile, to hit that unread and see where things are. I've usually with what I'm out and about with mobile, I feel less in control of what's going on than I do on desktop just because of that mobile experience. But
Right.
that's when I knew that my brain works with this new UI because I was out and about, hit that, and knew I could see at a glance what am I missing, what
Hmm.
is unread. That I don't know, that let me know, like, yeah, this is gonna work for me. So so the
Right.
mobile experience with this, you should try that out as well. But go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I was actually, you took me in a slightly different direction. When we got excited about group chat in my immediate work, from my last team, from my current team, I found that there was such great information going into the group chat, and we were using our channels less and less,
Hmm.
which in one hand is exciting because that means we are hitting each other with this communication more frequently, and we have group chat that we can search. And of course, Copilot and Microsoft Search can help us navigate through all of that running stream of consciousness kind of communication. But I did miss my team using the channels that we created for those specific lines of communication and subject
Hmm.
matter. And this kind of reinvigorated the channel for us, I think.
Mm. Yeah.
There had been, that just shift in focus to be more group chat focused, but it did lose the goodness of having that one parking lot place to focus specific communication around. So I love that this marries both of those, and I can take that very active group chat and that very active channel for the general announcements in my team and put them both in their own section and have that brought to my attention quickly and focus that at the top of the list so that I don't have to scroll through 10 teams to get there.
Mhm.
And I don't also have to wonder, well, was that in the group chat or was that in the
Yeah.
channel? Because it really doesn't matter anymore. They're both going to be surfaced to me in the same place. That's
Yeah.
why I became a fan of this
Mhm.
hesitantly.
Mhm.
I didn't want to be a fan of it, but it absolutely is the way I work. And
Yeah.
so I applaud the UI improvements. And although I was a laggard in coming and wasn't very excited to be there, I totally am on board now and an advocate for it.
And I'm actually glad to hear you say that because that I had a theory that this UI would increase channel use because I knew the pain point was, well, we just stay in group chats
Right.
because channels are all over the place. It's hard to know when somebody's doing something over there. And now that they're in one place, even in one section, in my mind, I was like, okay, so what's going to be then the blocker for the folks who had that pain point? Okay, you didn't know where they were and what was happening. Well, now they're
Right.
all in one spot. So why not use them now? And it sounds like for you, that was exactly what happened. Well, yeah, now that they're right in my face and organized, then sure, let's have our conversations there. Because you're right. I mean, as I'm here, what's the difference between this group chat with these, four folks versus clicking here and, a conversation with for 40 folks, I mean, they're right in the same spot. And so why not start a conversation here and then of course get all the benefits of a threaded conversation about that particular topic or that particular channel versus this one. So um, may still, a lot of my teams that are doing group chats have not, nobody rushed over to the channels area and said, oh yeah, this new UI means our group chats are done. Let's all go to channels. That still hasn't happened yet. But my theory has been that might be easier to for people to start to, maybe move towards. I'm seeing the chats here. I often struggle to know the purpose of channels versus group chats. All right, good question. And maybe the answer prior to this UI was, the group chats were they usually were quick to put together, right? Quick, ad hoc. Let's have a conversation. It's a stream of thought, kind of like your text messages on your phone. We're not thinking as much about formal organization of the thoughts. It's just a thought stream. And also a big advantage was that it didn't matter whether you were a member of the team where that conversation was going to happen. I mean, this Amber Gene, bring anybody together in the org for this conversation, regardless of if we're on the same team, was a big advantage to it. If I have my conversations in a channel, they're happening with the members of the team. If I need to bring somebody into that conversation, I got to add them to the team just to get them into that channel. And sometimes that's a big lift, right? That person may not want to be a part of a whole team just to participate in that conversation. So they're a lot more flexible from that perspective. And that's what I think that's one of the big reasons why people end up having their conversations in group chats is that flexibility. I don't got to think about organization and who's a member of what. Let's just talk. What's benefit of that channel though is as we start talking more often and longer, that conversations, instead of that single stream of thought, now we can actually have conversation threads. In May, we're talking about production environments and I can expand and collapse that conversation. And that's different from this conversation here that we had about the splash page. This look and feel can't happen today in the group chats, right? These threaded conversations. And then as you think about it even further, some of the governance around these conversations and back end things, there's a difference between, channels versus group chats, and that membership and who can see it might be more of a concern and things like that. So not to mention all of the bells and whistles that this channel has that the group chats doesn't have. So, but the short answer usually was, why channels versus chats usually was the flexibility that the chats provided to just bring anybody in. I don't have to think much about a whole new team. I don't have to add a whole new team to someone's list in order to have a conversation with them. One last thing, as we run out of time here, but one last thing I wanted to mention, because in this group and in my blog and whatnot, I have talked often about my pet peeve of naming chats when you're in group chats. So this thing that I've got going on here, Amber Jean and who else, I can't even see unless I hover over it. I got 6 people going on here. I don't know without hovering. That would irk me, right? I have to click on this and read it to know what is this group chat talking about. Why don't you guys come in here and name it something so that I know what this is about and can search on it later? And I'm still in that camp, but this new UI keeps me from having to have that conversation with this group, because as I'm looking in here, I can tell this is about Microsoft Copilot and its capabilities. Regardless of if they ever agree with me about naming this chat, I can now add this chat to the Copilot section so that now, even if they never name it, I know it's Copilot related because it's now in my Copilot section. And that's what I've done with dozens of unnamed group chats that I'm a part of. They're choosing not to name it. but I don't have to push it because I can decide, what it's about and put it in a section. And if that stream of thought suddenly changes to something else, like maybe this co-pilot conversation suddenly turns into a support conversation, then I'll move it over to support now. And now it's a support related one as opposed to changing the name of the chat. So that was helpful to me as a pet peeve person of the unnamed chats. This helps me there as well. So
I'm going to have to ask for an audit list of your section names.
yeah.
I want to know if I'm in a nice group,
Right.
in a nice section.
Right.
Of course I am. I know. You have only nice section names, I'm sure.
Of course. I do also name them. Well, maybe not name them, but group them based on how chatty they are too. If I have chats and channels that are, because again, I'm always watching for the bold and the unread. So if something's going to go unread all the time, I'm not going to put that in a group that is overwhelmingly quiet and see that group go bold all the time just because of that one channel. So I do sometimes move things based on their activity, so that my relatively quiet topics stay unbolded, and I know nothing's really going on there. So yes, the topic is a thing I will name sections on, as well as the level of activity. But again, for me, it's all about wanting to come here, collapse everything, and see what's bold. What do I need to look at right now? Across this. And it's kind of like a zero inbox thing. My goal is trying to get all of these things to not be bold. And that's just kind of how I work. So yeah, favorites, for instance, is one where I will put chatty people or things that I just know all day long. They're always going to be bold. So no need to try to go zero inbox with them. Just put them in favorites, and I usually just keep this open all the time. So that's another option as well. There's other things I could talk about here and show, but we're at time here. Hopefully this was helpful.
A fast time.
Yeah. If you haven't seen this before, then you've seen it first here. And we can certainly go through the other things as we talk about this in future sessions. But love to hear your feedback either in chat or as we put this up to YouTube. You can use the comments there, or just hit us up directly. But would love to hear feedback, good or bad, right? Because again, I love to hear the parts that aren't working well also. And we at Microsoft want to hear those too, especially that's the whole point of a public preview, is we're still open to your feedback. There's still time to make changes before this goes out. So if you do feel passionately about any parts of this is the time to let it be known to your account teams and whatnot, so we can get that feedback in and before the GA. See a comment, you mentioned this earlier. When will this be rolled out to the general public? Yeah, so it has just started public preview. I can't remember what the anticipated GA date is yet. I'm sure it's calendar year 25, but it's just starting public preview, so you've got some time. And sometimes public preview timeline changes based on the amount of feedback and whatnot. So yeah. So the only way you'd see this again is if your tenant is has the checkbox for like targeted releases and pre-releases. If you're not on that kind of a cadence, then you won't see this till GA. All right. Good question. All right. Well, yeah, we're at time here. And again, hope this is helpful. And this will be on YouTube if you need to see it again. But yeah, glad you guys joined us. Don't forget about aka.ms/cat for Copilot, weekly Copilot stuff as well. But other than that, yes, glad you guys could join us, and we will see you next time. aka.ms/Qt14 will have the next date, likely in December, mid-December, for this session. All right.
Awesome. Thanks,
everybody.
Bye all.
See you next time.